The world knew Richard Hale as a man who never took no for an answer. He was the kind of CEO who could turn a bankrupt company into a billion-dollar empire with nothing but determination and relentless discipline. But that morning, sitting in the silent corner of a hospital waiting room, Richard was just a father, broken, helpless, and terrified. His little girl, Emily, only 4 years old, hadn't spoken a word in over 6 months. Once a bubbly, curious child who would fill the house with laughter and endless questions, Emily now existed behind a wall of silence. Her eyes still sparkled, but her voice, the very essence of her joy, was gone. Specialists, speech therapists, and top pediatric neurologists had tried everything. Each appointment ended the same way, with a polite, sympathetic look and the words no parent ever wanted to hear: "We're doing our best, but we can't guarantee she'll speak again." If you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in the power of unexpected heroes, take a moment right now to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to Kindness Thread. Together, we can spread stories that the world will never forget. Richard's life had always been about control. He controlled markets, boardrooms, and mergers. But he couldn't control this. Every day, he'd sit by Emily's bedside, telling her stories, singing her favorite lullabies, and holding her tiny hand, praying that she'd say, "Daddy," just once more. He had flown in experts from across the globe: Germany, Japan, Switzerland. He'd spent millions, because money had always solved his problems before. But this wasn't a problem. This was his daughter's life. And no matter how much money he threw at it, her silence only grew heavier. One late afternoon, Richard arrived at the private rehab center earlier than usual. As he walked through the bright corridor, his polished shoes clicking against the marble, he heard something strange, a sound that didn't belong in the sterile quiet of that place. It was laughter. Not just any laughter, but a bubbling, pure giggle that seemed to warm the cold air. He stopped, heart pounding. Slowly, he followed the sound, and there she was, Emily, sitting cross-legged on the polished floor, her face glowing with joy. In front of her was a man in worn jeans, a gray t-shirt, and black work gloves. His hands were dirty, a tool belt hung from his waist, and his hair was slightly messy. He was a janitor, holding a small, handmade puppet crafted from an old baseball cap and a pair of socks. Richard stood frozen. He hadn't heard his daughter laugh in months, yet here she was, giggling at the silly puppet's high-pitched voice. The janitor would make the puppet trip, pretending it bumped into Emily's knees, then fall dramatically to the ground, making Emily laugh even harder. Richard's throat tightened, his mind struggling to process what he was seeing. Emily wasn't just laughing, she was mouthing words, faint and shy, but there. Over the next few days, Richard watched from a distance. Every morning, the janitor, whose name he learned was Jack, would come by with new little inventions for Emily. Sometimes it was a toy made from paper cups, other times a silly song. Jack never used complicated therapy techniques, never carried any medical equipment, just patience, kindness, and an uncanny ability to make Emily feel safe. And day by day, Richard saw the impossible happen, Emily's lips forming more words, her voice gaining confidence, her giggles filling the hallway again. Curiosity turned into disbelief. Richard finally approached Jack, desperate to understand. Jack simply shrugged, saying, "Kids don't always need fixing. Sometimes they just need someone who's not trying so hard to make them better. Someone who just plays." Richard felt an ache deep in his chest. All the specialists had focused on structured exercises, tests, and treatments. But Jack had given Emily something they hadn't, a friend who met her in her world, not theirs. Weeks passed, and Emily's progress stunned even her doctors. She began speaking in full sentences, telling stories, asking questions. One evening, as Richard tucked her into bed, she whispered, "I love you, Daddy." It was the first time he had heard those words since she had gone silent, and they broke him open. He left the room in tears, his heart overflowing with gratitude. The next day, he sought out Jack, determined to reward him. Standing in the dimly lit maintenance room, Richard told him, "If you teach her to speak again, I'll give you everything." But Jack just smiled and shook his head. "I already have everything. I see her smile every day." In that moment, Richard realized that the value of kindness couldn't be measured in money. He had spent fortunes trying to restore his daughter's voice, but it was compassion, simple, unassuming compassion, that had succeeded. Jack didn't see Emily as a case to solve. He saw her as a little girl who needed to be reminded that the world was still a place worth speaking to. By the time Emily returned home, she was chattering endlessly about her new best friend. Richard invited Jack to visit often, and soon, their lives intertwined beyond anything Richard had imagined. Jack became a cherished part of their family, a living reminder that miracles sometimes come wearing worn-out gloves and carrying a mop, not a briefcase. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe to Kindness Thread so more people can believe in the power of simple, human kindness. And before this video ends, I have one special request. Comment below with one moment in your life when someone's unexpected kindness changed everything for you. Your story might be the hope someone else needs today. Because in the end, the richest person isn't the one with the biggest bank account. It's the one who can give without expecting anything in return, and in doing so, change a life forever.